going to introduce our guest today. She's been teaching for 27 years. She teaches middle school currently in Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Her undergraduate degree is in biology, and it's from the University of Miami. Her master's was sought and achieved at Florida International University. She's a seasoned traveler, having traveled on all 7 continents. She has yet to travel to Mars, but she probably will be one of the first people there. One of her favorite things is introducing young, eager minds to the world of nature and science. She's a national board certified teacher and the recipient of several national and local honors, including Miami-Dade Secular Teacher of the Year in 1997, in 2008, in 2017, and probably again in the future. She's the recipient of the 2017 National Association of Biology Teachers Evolution Education Award, and that's one of the longest named awards that exists. And she's also one of Florida's 2017 finalists for the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. Please join me in welcoming our special guest today, Bertha Vazquez.
Hi, so good to be here. I drove up from Miami-Dade this morning. I should clarify, I didn't win Miami-Dade County Secular Teacher of the Year. I won Science Teacher.
Did I say secular?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It rolls off the tongue so nicely, though. So. I'm okay with it, but yeah. And if you win the Presidential Award, you meet the President.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Too bad. Which President of what?
As in the United States.
Oh. Sorry.
So
Too bad
I
you need to
was a
wash your
finalist
hair
in
next
2015, and they met Obama, but I didn't win. So I just thought Hillary would be president. Anyway, that didn't happen. Anyway, so thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I feel very much at home in Florida. And raise your hand if you were at Free Flow. Okay, I tried to change this a little bit for you because I was very nervous that you'd see the same presentation and I would bore you. I didn't want to do that. So I am a middle school science teacher. I've been teaching for 27 years, but I'm also the director of the Teacher Institute for Evolutionary Science. And our goal is to help middle school science teachers, specifically middle school science teachers, teach evolution in the United States. And that's the wrong way. Is it this way? No, it's that way. Haha, I got it. I have to point it that way. So I love being a science teacher. I really do. I think it's the greatest job in the world. I get to introduce students not just to the wonders of the universe, but I introduce them to a way of thinking. I introduce them to the scientific method. And I think the scientific method isn't just about science and science education and science discovery. It's a way of seeing the world. That's a very powerful and to me, satisfying way of seeing the world. But then I teach high school biology to very advanced middle schoolers, and then I get to evolution education. And it's sometimes very hard. In The Greatest Show on Earth, a book by Richard Dawkins, he likens it to a professor of Roman history over and over again, every year, having to defend the existence of the Roman Empire. Every year you have people in your room saying, oh no, the Roman Empire didn't exist, and you show them the literature, and you show them the ruins, and you show them everything there is to show, and every year you have to show it all over again because the arguments are tired and repeated over and over again. You think that I wouldn't have to deal with this pseudo-controversy because I am in the middle school in Florida with the highest test scores. We're a language magnet. Kids finish our school passing the AP Spanish, German, Italian, or French exams. We have the highest AP pass rates in the country. My kids take math in their language. They take humanities in that language. My son's in that school, so he takes math in Spanish. He takes humanities in Spanish. I often have to teach. I can't help the German kids very much, but I have to teach the newcomers in these languages. So it's a beautiful, multicultural place. Really neat kids, great parents. But yeah, no, it still happens in my school too. And the main thing that happens in my school is they're confused as to what they're allowed to believe. But Ms. Vazquez, am I allowed to believe this? And, you're not supposed to ask children their religion and stuff, but I'll say, well, what's your religion? I'm Catholic. Oh no, you're good. You're okay. The Vatican accepts this stuff. Some kids are outright defiant. I've had kids in the past who will turn their chair to the wall. And others are just anxious. This year I don't have any people giving me a hard time. This is the first time in 11 years. I have nobody giving me a hard time. And I thought I was, because I had these same kids last year. And I listen, I'm always listening, but I don't have any problems this year. But they're just anxious. And they're like, but why is this a problem in some places? And what's the problem here? Another thing, this young lady here, she came to me last year and she was in tears. I said, Chloe, what's wrong? And she says, well, my dad and I, we go to this church and the pastor was bashing evolution and saying how this was ridiculous and untrue. And I went up to him after, and she's, you know, dutiful, wonderful young lady. She said, but no, Pastor, you see, I'm learning about this in school, and I know this, and I know the evidence for this, and she's a very smart girl. And he said, who's teaching you this stuff? And she says, well, my science teacher, she's great, and he says, your science teacher is a disgusting human being. Oh. I know, I still cry when I think about that. He took her in the wrong direction, or what he would consider the wrong direction. She told her dad she didn't believe in God anymore after that. But she's a smart girl. I know in 7th grade she was doing math for me. I teach physical science in 7th, and I go, Chloe, you need to show your work. And she was doing it all in her head. Yeah, it just kind of freaked me out when I saw that. So she's one of those that can do like square roots in her head and stuff. But yeah, so I have this problem in a very educated community. And I was talking to Laura, yes, beforehand. She says that she's in Volusia.
Well, I retired from Volusia. And there was a very strong science core evolution that we were told at our teachers' meetings that we are to teach evolution. But what they started doing is putting in these people who were not very qualified, poorly qualified teachers, who taught whatever they thought they could teach, which was nothing, because they weren't qualified to teach anything. There's an exam where if a person, any one of you guys could walk in, if you could score a 60 or above on that exam, or not 60%, if you could score 60% on that exam, then you could be qualified to teach in a particular subject. If you had a college degree, okay, so they take a woman who's never taught science, has no real concept of it, but she's a good Christian girl, okay? She is a model. She models good social skills, she models this, she models that. How can she be anything but a great teacher, but she doesn't know squat? So she passes this at 60%. She goes in and she teaches, well, we have got to be equitable. We have to teach intelligent design.
Yeah, which is against the law.
Okay, and you know, and the parents love her. Oh my God, the parents just love her. Look at this. She's placating everybody. And the good teachers are getting pulled out of the classroom, being asked like myself, I taught physical science. Because you pissed off too many people with your teaching evolution or whatever.
You should teach gravity as a theory.
Yeah, well.
Oh wait, it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. You know, so what I'm saying is, I remember 3 teachers at our school that were teaching intelligent design, and they were getting very high evaluations.
Yeah, let's hear some good news.
Okay.
No, so I think it's important to bring up a little bit the history of evolution education in the United States, because I really do feel it's moving in the right direction. We banned evolution education from 1925 to 1968. That's not that long ago. Then we have what's called equal time laws, which ended in 1987, which is that. If I teach evolution, I also have to cover creationism in my classroom, and we got rid of those. Kitzmiller v. Dover in Pennsylvania, very famous case, ended intelligent design being taught in our public schools. And then now what we have today is called academic freedom. It's insidious. We have it here in Florida. Anybody, any citizen, as many of you know, can go and critique the curriculum of any school, any book that's being read in the language arts class, and complain about it. Last I heard, there were about 10 complaints. I don't know if you guys had heard more, but 10 complaints overall so far in the state. And this is what, that wishy-washy thing that sounds fantastic, but it means teachers can say, oh, I want my children to see both sides and things like that. And it's really hard to control what's going on in the classroom. Let's hear some data. Do you feel pressure to include creationism? 31% of high school biology teachers responded that they did. This is high school biology teachers, not middle school. Where is this pressure coming from? 22% from the students, 20% from the parents, and only 3%, 5 and 3% from administrators and principals. So you have kind of luckily, a rather unique situation. 25% of teachers indicated that they devoted at least 1 to 2 classroom hours to creationism or intelligent design. Before you get too upset, half of those teachers are doing it to explain why it's not a viable scientific theory. Because I'm one of them. I just covered intelligent design in my classroom to explain why it's really the theory of personal incredulity. You know, well, it's too complicated, God did it, kind of thing. So what that brings us, this poll matches this poll, which is 13 to 16% of high school biology teachers in our country espouse the idea that God created life on earth in its present form 6,000 years ago. And that's, I said I was going to give you good news. That's a terrible slide. Let me get rid of it right now.
What percentage did you say believe that
13 to 16%.
Dear God.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot. So, a lot of this is coming from personal beliefs, but sometimes, and this is crazy, the next slide, it's coming from the district. You cannot read that. I will read it for you. This is just up the road on 95 to South Georgia, and teachers receive a guide from the school district how they're supposed to introduce stuff, curriculum, and so forth. So in this teacher's guide, it's, I can't read the county on there. Troop County Schools. In the teacher's guide, the teacher's supposed to begin her evolution unit like this. Hi, Dave. Will you tell Sarah what a zombie is? Sarah, will you tell Dave what a vampire is? And the teacher waits and they explain to each other what a vampire is, what a zombie is. This is great. Do you understand what a zombie is now? You don't believe in zombies though, do you? No. Well, we're about to learn about evolution. You're going to understand evolution, but that doesn't mean you need to believe it. This is coming from the school district. I know CFI, the Center for Inquiry, wrote letters to the school district. So did Freedom from Religion Foundation. So did the National Center for Science Education. But we never heard back. None of those organizations heard back. Yeah.
Now I have a question, and this may be splitting hairs, but science, your beliefs can be different than your thoughts and your reasoning. What may be a belief
has no place in a science classroom.
Well, right. That's your belief. But what we're teaching is the theory, period. And that's how I go about it. We're not teaching you beliefs. We're teaching theories.
Based on
based on
a broad explanation and evidence and everything else.
And can you tell us why you see a little three-toed horse in Florida, you know, whatever the number of years are ago during this early Cenozoic era, and now you see a four-toed horse in Florida. Can you give me an explanation? Okay? That's a theory. So I kind of say, let's look at this from a theory, and I don't even say that I believe in this.
But they need to understand what theory means then.
Yeah.
Because if they think I have a theory that the Miami Dolphins are going to win the Super Bowl next year, that's not what theory means in science.
Right, but still,
Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah.
That was my point.
Yeah.
The theory used in a scientific sense
Very different.
is an established thing that always works.
Yes, yes,
No, it's
over
not-
time. And I have a slide on that. Yeah.
I would, I'm a scientist, I would refer to it as a paradigm. So whoever you are operating in a paradigm. And then if you're scientific, you come up with a theory, and you test that theory
Right.
against your paradigm, and prove it, or
Over
disprove
time.
it, and you come to a new conclusion, new paradigm, which basically the biggest thing probably going on in our world today is food, nutrition as a medicine, which Hippocrates and Socrates sat down and talked about food being your medicine 2,500 years ago, and it's become so convoluted. So what's in your mind is a paradigm.
Right. That has to be tested.
And then testing is the science.
And we cover that.
What state is that?
Georgia.
That's in Georgia. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew it had to be in the South.
So I like to refer to this as the mind virus, because if I go back to this for a second, it makes you mad, it makes me mad. What they're doing is giving those poor teachers an out so that they don't get bombarded by parents and students and their meanness, okay, or at least their anxiety. So I understand why they're doing this. So what we're really fighting here is a mind virus, and it says how religion can be viewed as a meme, an idea previously expressed in this book, Selfish Gene. Religious ideas and behaviors as a virus, analogous to how biological and computer viruses spread. Today, kids think a meme is a funny picture, right? But it was supposed to be how something is spread culturally as opposed to genetically. So is there a cure for this mind virus that doesn't let kids just understand basic biology? Yes, I think there is a cure, and I think it's education. There's a 60% level of acceptance of human evolution among adults in the US. But if you look at kids under the age of 30, that number, kids under the age of 30, it is at 68%. It's also important how you word the question. If you just stick to animals and plants, the level of acceptance does go up. But if you talk about human evolution, it's at 60. Now you can say that this is due to an overall loss of religiosity in our country. But I'm a science teacher, so I like to believe that it has to do with the fact that they've received a better education. I like to think of Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye. I love him. And these kids here seeing cosmos and stuff like that. And this is Sean Carroll, the biologist, who said over the past decade, the concerted efforts of various academic and scientific organizations have led to greater emphasis in textbooks and curricula on the central place of evolution in understanding life. So I really feel, I know it's depressing and we have a big fight ahead of us of just helping kids understand the world, but I think we're moving in the right direction. This is a study that suggested that if teachers just got a course in evolutionary biology and just learned the basics of evolutionary biology, that would do more than all the lawsuits in the country, okay? It would have a far greater impact in the classroom if we focused on evolution education for our teachers. And I love this science writer. She's with the National Science Foundation. It's a big, long quote, so I broke it down. But this is, to me, the key. Teachers need to feel confident teaching the subject. Teachers who are at the top of their game, I completely agree with this, can teach anything, as long as they have the resources to do so. So we have really enthusiastic and knowledgeable science teachers. They may not know evolutionary theory, but they're capable of teaching it when properly supported. I completely agree with this because I work with some amazing elementary school teachers that have moved into the middle school level, and I think they're the best teachers I've ever seen. They just need to be taught the content of science. Enter the Teacher Institute for Evolutionary Science, which is actually why I'm here. We are a project of the Richard Dawkins Foundation for Reason and Science, which is now CFI. It's a branch of the Center for Inquiry as of last year. And so how did ties begin? Well, I've been teaching a very long time. I've been teaching middle school. And I realized, for example, I have to teach weather. Meteorology. I don't know anything about weather, okay? And suddenly it's in the 6th grade curriculum in Florida and I have to teach it. I have to teach about rocks. I don't know anything about rocks. So you have to learn the content before you can present it to others. I got to meet Richard Dawkins several times at the University of Miami, and one of the times it was a small group of people. We were having lunch And he was listening to the first time about these teachers in Florida in private schools having trouble teaching evolution and being told they couldn't teach evolution and so forth. And I left that meeting thinking, gosh, I can do something. I can give my fellow middle school science teachers lessons in evolution on content, but not just content, but give them some resources to back up the content. And that's what I did. I did it at my school, and then I did it at a couple neighboring schools. Richard Dawkins comes back to Miami a year later. He has a big donor there, so he comes often. And I got to meet him again. And I said, he goes, oh, you're that teacher. And I said, yes, that's me. And guess what I did? And I told him what I did. And he goes, oh my gosh, I need to learn more about this. Are you staying after this talk to the cocktail and so forth? And he introduced me to his executive director, who is Robin Blumner of Center for Inquiry. And they listened to what I did. I'm teaching the next day. It's 11 a.m. and I'm teaching weather, which I don't like teaching very much. And the phone rings, and it's a DC area code. Okay, you're not supposed to pick up your phone in class. Okay, don't tell anybody I did this. But I bet you that's Robin. It has to be Robin. She's in DC. So I pick up the phone. It's not Robin. It's Richard Dawkins. Hi, this is Richard Dawkins. We spoke yesterday. Of course, I know. Yes. I really like what you're doing. How can I help? So I step outside my classroom, and I slide down the wall, and I go, well, you know, I use your stuff. I use all your stuff. You have really good videos, and the Ancestor's Tale. That's, to me, his best book, and I use it in his. No. I mean, can I come to your school and speak to these teachers? Wow. I was like, okay. He says, look, here's the deal. I leave for Sydney, Australia today. I'll be back in 2 weeks. I have 5 hours in Miami, and then I'm going home to London on the airplane. So if you can get me in your school on this day, within this time and this time, I'll be there. Well, I did. I got that. I made that happen. Okay. Miami-Dade County realized, just to back up, since I have more time than I did at Free Flow, I went to Catholic school for 13 years. And it was a good experience, good teachers, wonderful, but something just didn't click for me. And it just, we could go on after and have a beer, but it just didn't click for me. And then I read The Selfish Gene. And The Selfish Gene, speaking of paradigms, it's just shifted my paradigm. And I realized that science was such a satisfying way of looking for answers. Even if you don't get the answers, it's such a satisfying search. And I subsequently read all of Richard's books, and for me it was scaffolds in my mind upon which I could put my thoughts. So he was a very big deal to me. To meet him, it was a very big deal. So Miami-Dade County, believe it or not, realized, hey, this is a very big deal, and opened it up to all the science teachers in the county. Wow. We're the 4th largest school district in the country. So we filled our, well, maybe I shouldn't lie. We didn't fill the auditorium, but there were a lot of people there. There were hundreds of teachers there. And we just did natural selection. He sat on stage with me, and we talked natural selection and evolution, and my students were there, and it was a really fun time. And I thought, that was awesome, that's it, it's over, wow, I could die happily now. But I got another call, and he asked me to do it nationally for him. Can you do this nationally? Because I understand teachers need content. Good teachers are good, but they just need the content. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm just a science teacher in Miami-Dade County. I don't know if I can do this. He says, I don't think he said I have faith in you. He said something to that effect. And that's how ties began. And I'm going to let him explain ties to you, because I thought it was cute that we were called ties, and I remember his ties are funny, if you've ever seen Richard Dawkins' ties. So I wrote this, and he offered to go into the studio, and he's the one who narrated it.
These are some of my trademark ties, hand-painted by my wife, Lala Ward, and everyone you need. But today, I want to talk about a different kind of ties. The Richard Dawkins Foundation for Reason and Science has launched the Teacher Institute for Evolutionary Science, or TIES. We created TIES for middle school science teachers. You see, middle school science teachers are like those amazing acrobats who can spin several plates in the air at the same time. Yes, they teach earth science, space science, life science, and everything in between, sometimes all in the same school year. Meanwhile, science knowledge is quickly expanding thanks to the wonderful work of curious scientists everywhere. What is a science teacher to do? There's no way to keep up with it all. Here is where TIES comes in to save the day. The purpose of the Teacher Institute for Evolutionary Science, TIES, is to familiarize interested middle school science teachers with the concepts of natural selection, common ancestry, and diversity in order for them to confidently cover the topics in their classrooms and fulfill their curriculum requirements. Through free workshops and online resources, TIES introduces middle school teachers to the most important points of evolution and natural selection. We make sure participating teachers leave our TIES workshops with presentation slides, labs, guided reading assignments, an exam, and a valuable resource list for their lesson plans. Now, did you catch the part that TIES workshops and resources are free? That's right, they're free. That's why we're asking you for help. With your donation, TIES can...
So I'll stop it there because it was a donation video. So I just wanted you to see the introduction part. There we go. So that, I think that actually really covers it. We started offering free workshops for teachers. And we started, that was the video that you saw there, that was our first workshop. I found that the best workshops are when I collaborate. That was at the Frost Science Museum in Miami. We've collaborated with universities, with zoos, with school districts. Let me give you some numbers. This is my favorite slide. We had 10 workshops in 2015. We had 17 workshops in 2016. We had 46 last year. The 46 workshops were presented by 33 different presenters. Because I am a full-time classroom teacher. I don't want to leave my class. It's hard to leave your class. So what I do is I recruit and train other presenters. Mainly high school AP biology teachers. That's the real core group that I have. We've had 6 workshops so far this year. We had one on Friday in Indiana and one yesterday in Tampa. Last week we had one in, see, I'm starting to forget where these things are. I'll show you a map in a second. And these are the 32 states that we are now in. So our goal is to make it to every state, but I think it's easier to see it this way. Okay, so the black pins are 2015, the light blue pins are 2016, the reds are 17, and the yellow is what we have so far this year. It's working. It's really, really working. So I'll tell you why I think it's working. We provide several things. First of all, we provide content. Teachers need content. And it's like it says in the video, it's changing all the time. So these are your Florida middle school standards on evolution. They're not bad. They're not bad at all. I mean, if a teacher's not teaching them, that's a problem. So our standards here are, these are the big pictures, there's bullets under these. The scientific theory of evolution is the organizing principle of life science. That's a wonderful statement. It's a big statement. The scientific theory of evolution is supported by multiple forms of evidence. Not too many states say that. You get a lot of fossils, and fossils are wonderful, but there's a lot of other stuff. Natural selection is the primary mechanism leading to change over time. In high school, the students will receive other mechanisms, such as random genetic drift and gene flow, but in middle school, we're introducing them only to natural selection. These slides now, these are straight from the PowerPoint. We give this PowerPoint to the teachers. Underneath in the notes section, every slide has engaging hands-on activities. Teachers shouldn't be lecturing in their classrooms. So they have this, and I tell them, take my name off of it and put your name on it. Originally, when the Dawkins Foundation put this stuff on the webpage, they made them PDFs. I said, no PDFs. It has to be Word. Teachers should be able to change them, modify them to their needs. That always blows people away a little bit in the workshops when I say, take my name off of it and put your name on it. I don't care. I need this to be taught. I'm not proprietary. So these are the actual evidences, is that a word? Evidence for evolution. And in my PowerPoint, there's lots of fun pictures, and there's links and videos that the teachers can stop and go to different places. When I do this to teachers, I walk around with stickers and I say, give me evidence for evolution. I'll always get number 1. I might get number 5, 6. If there's some high school teachers in the room, I might get 7. But nobody gives them all to you. So you know that you're giving them content. There's a lot of graphics as well. I know kids learn in different ways, so teachers can move things around as they wish. And then we have a whole website, which I can show you, but I think it's okay here. We have a whole website with labs, with homeworks, with exams, a website in Spanish, our webinar schedule, which I'll tell you about in a second, where the in-person workshops are in the country. I even videotape myself doing the labs with my students, the labs that you could download for free, and I videotape myself doing the labs. So if a teacher's never done them, doesn't understand how to do them, she can see it. And it is really amateurish. The kids are cheating, we have to start the lab over, there's things falling on the floor. It's exactly what you expect to see in a middle school science classroom. We taped an iPhone to a tripod. And we added Play-Doh. I mean, it's just super amateurish, but I think that teachers like that. Lots of data collection. We really emphasize data collection. And then I'm not reinventing the wheel. There's some awesome websites out there. I just link to these other wonderful websites, online games, etc. Okay? I have an exam on there with an answer key, and I got an email from Oklahoma that says, you know, my kids found your answer key. Those darn kids. So now if you click on download evolution exam, it says, aha, you're going to have to email me with a school email site or email address, or you're not getting this. So teachers have to, I get emails all the time from teachers asking me for the exam. Second, that's what we were talking about. We must explain theory. And a lot of people don't understand what that means. If I had $1 for every time I heard evolution is just a theory, I believe our vice president has said that. I tell the kids, look, I know you're going to use it like Miami Dolphins winning the Super Bowl. I know you're going to use it like that, but would you mind using it if you put the word scientific in front of the word theory, scientific theory, it means something else. Okay? It's not a guess, it's not a hunch, it's a really well-substantiated, well-supported, well-documented explanation. And gravity's a theory. The fact that the sun is the center of the solar system, that's a theory. So that has to be covered. Florida is one of the few states that in their standards, it says, teach law, theory, fact, the differences among them. I think there were 3 states that did that, because I did a whole thing on standards. So that's good. This is what I hear. If you say it's just a theory, I don't have a basic understanding of science. Because after all, gravity is a theory, and I don't see anybody jumping out of buildings. Hopefully not. The third thing is scientific inquiry. And to me, now that I'm working for the Center for Inquiry, to me this is the umbrella under which everything the Center for Inquiry does, it falls. If we teach children the process of science, how science, what you were saying, sir, how you have an idea and you research it and you test it and you look for evidence, and if your evidence takes you in a different direction, then so be it. That understanding of how science finds knowledge, that's the biggest thing. And something just came up that I saw yesterday, published in 2017. Understanding of the nature of science was the single most important factor associated with acceptance of evolution in our study. And they had 3,000 people in their study, over two different studies. So there you go. It's teaching people how science gets its answers. So we cover inquiry. Next, we focus on the current relevance of evolutionary biology. Of course, we have Darwin in our presentation. But Darwin is like, that turns kids off right away because they've been hearing since they were kids what an evil guy this is and the theory of evolution and so forth. So we talk about current relevance. They don't think about antibiotic resistance. Please explain that to me without an understanding of natural selection. You need to understand natural selection. We use labs from different organizations. This is a great thing. I was speaking earlier with somebody about HHMI, the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. That's the gold standard of evolution education in our country. There was a park in Mozambique, a wildlife park, that was completely decimated during the Civil War there in the 70s. A very wealthy American entrepreneur is bringing all the animals back from other parks. One animal did not make it. Most of them are thriving. The one animal did not make it, had limited genetic variability. The cheetah. Okay, they brought in all the cheetahs died. Because the cheetah, as a species, went through a bottleneck some 70,000 years ago, and there's very limited variation within the species. They could not adapt to this new environment. That's evolution. That's evolution repopulating a park in Mozambique. And this is my favorite story. This is the chickpea. I did one of these at FIU, that's in Miami, and I did it with a professor there, Eric von Wetberg. And the teachers come in, and this was a full day. Those are my favorite. Full day ties workshop. I can do 60 minutes, I can do 3 days at this point. And the teachers tell you, oh, I teach it here, oh, I teach it at the end of the year, I teach it now before the test, because now it's on the test. And this teacher said, well, I teach it, but I don't really care, I don't believe it. And I tell the kids they don't have to believe it. And my heart sank a little bit, and I looked over at Eric, and he looked at me, and all right, so I did my thing. And then Eric is a chickpea expert. I didn't know this, but chickpeas are one of the crops most in trouble due to climate change. Chickpeas give 20% of the world's population their main source of protein, and we're losing the chickpea. So Eric von Wetberg flies to southern Turkey, northern Iraq, finds wild chickpea, which literally grows out of rocks, brings it back. He's not in FIU anymore, but he would bring it back to Florida, cross it with the agricultural strains, trying to increase the variability, hence the fitness of our crops. Well, when that teacher left, and this is now 4 o'clock, she said, I get it now. I get it. This is today. This is current. This is not what I thought it was. And so those are my favorite moments in this institute. Teaching teachers that she's not going to go back into the classroom and say the baloney she was saying earlier. Next thing is you have to give them not just resources, but support. Let me show you a letter that I got. Hi, Bertha. One of our new teachers got an email from a parent wanting Christian views taught in conjunction with the evolution unit. I know how I would respond to this, but wondered if ties or other resources you know of has a ready-to-go response she could send to this parent. Thanks. Yes, we do have one. And this is it. This is what you tell that parent. Hey, thanks for your suggestion, but the curriculum for the class is set by the district in conformity with the state science education standards. This is a teacher saying, it's not going to happen, it's not within my control, and I'm not going to address this anymore. And this is why we need strong state standards, because I am by nature so averse to, this is one of the things I was worried about this job, is I don't like people confronting me and stuff. I don't like parents confronting me. So a lot of teachers are like me, we're risk averse. That's why I'm in this job. And so this is getting the teacher out of the situation, but giving her some support. So we offer teachers things like, hey, do you know what the NSTA says about evolution education? Because you can tell the parent, the NSTA strongly supports the position that evolution should be emphasized. It understands that children will not achieve the level of literacy that we need to be well-informed citizens. We understand that a century of political controversy has prevented education from being emphasized in science curricula, and that we face pressure to eliminate or de-emphasize the teaching of evolution. So turn to your National Science Teachers Association. Turn to the National Science Foundation, the National Association of Biology Teachers. We give they don't even know these things exist, so we give them a backup. Speaking of standards, I got published last year. I did a study. I had 4 independent reviewers with the same rubric look at the middle school science standards of evolution across our country. Let me say, first of all, the fact that we're even reviewing middle school science standards is a very positive thing. Okay, so even the ones that got lower grades, I mean, 20 years ago you couldn't even look because there was no such thing as middle school science standards on evolution. So the rubric basically said, is evolution mentioned? Is evolution defined? Is natural selection mentioned and defined? Adaptation? What is the evidence for evolution that is pointed, that they're supposed to point the students to? So this is what it came down to. Most of the states that got an A, which are the white states, those are next generation science standard states, which is a national set of science standards. They're very good. Florida is not a next gen state, but we have really good standards. New York and Pennsylvania are not next gen states. There's a few others. There is kind of a regional tendency, as you can see there. Maine's got to get on board to fall in line with the rest of New England. Massachusetts and New Hampshire start evolution education in kindergarten. Isn't that awesome?
Yes.
They have kids looking at giraffes and bones and things like that. Just get them thinking. I mean, it's the underlying thread. Somebody said that biology without evolution is just stamp collecting. Evolution is what ties everything together. That you can't see too well, but we also make teachers, give them stuff. This is the most popular slide in the PowerPoint. It's a video by Richard Dawkins at the University of Nebraska comparing chimp DNA to human DNA. And it's a picture of Dr. Kenneth Miller, who's the author of our high school textbook here in Florida, a devout Catholic, thoughtful, religious man, who is comparing human chromosome number 2 with the chimp, the gorilla, and the orangutan. They have human chromosome number 2, except ours fused. Our chromosome number 2 represented 2 chromosomes in each of those species. And I say to the teachers, now when you get to this slide, if you're having problems with kids, you say, look, there's a non-believer, and there's a religious man. If you are lucky enough to have one of these 2 guys teach your evolution unit in your classroom, there should be no difference in the material presented. They would both present the exact same material. And the teachers all go, oh, I'm going to use that. I am going to use that. So I like that slide a lot. And I met Kenneth Miller in Nashville. They're starting to run together. And I told him, to me, meeting Kenneth Miller was like, oh, it was another one of those moments. And he is, in my opinion, the biggest defender of evolution education we have in this country. Okay, look him up. He's a wonderful guy. He works at Brown University. He's a cell biologist. I want you to meet some of our presenters, okay? I don't tell this to CFI so much, or Richard Dawkins, because they're all over the evolution education stuff, but for me, this is about promoting teacher leadership in local communities. Teachers are beaten down. Everybody else is telling us what we're supposed to do, lawyers and politicians and parents. By empowering teachers and saying, we want you to present to your fellow teachers in your school districts or in your state conferences, it makes a big difference. And I think that's why this program is working, because teachers are owning it. The Institute now is growing every week. Texas, Georgia, Portland, North Carolina, Georgia as well. She's the one who sent me the zombie thing. She lives in Brunswick. The first email I got from Georgia is like, sorry, you're never having a workshop here. I've had 5. Oh, and there's another one in March. Don't tell me what I can't do. Virginia, Panama City, Louisiana. Gosh, this guy. He's done Louisiana, he's done Mississippi, and he's doing Alabama. I want to hug him like he's hugging that tree. And that's me with a fox, which has been artificially selected for the last 50 years in Siberia, and they're selling them like dogs now. It's a really cool story. I have a video here if you want to see it. And a friend of mine in Miami has like 3 of them. We've had 73 workshops so far. I think I have to update that because we had 2 yesterday. This is what, yeah. Woo! We want the whole country. This is from all over the place. You're seeing workshops in different states here. We have games online, we have hands-on, everything is free, and I make sure everything's under $5. If it's a lab, it's under $5 for the teacher. Because you know teachers are paying. I just bought toner for my printer in my classroom 2 days ago. So, here's a few more. This is great. Sometimes I take good stuff, like those are my skulls, but because skulls are very expensive, I have the exact same lab with 2D, like paper, that they could just make copies of. That's in southern Texas, San Juan, Texas, I think.
Yeah.
More stuff. Somewhere in here is a lady who said she didn't believe in evolution and walked away with the chickpea example, but I'm not going to point her out. So what are teachers saying? I get emails all the time. Love the websites. I love the idea of going to PD on science content. We're so sick of workshops on assessment. Is there a teacher? Data assessment. How are your kids going to do on the state exam? I am so tired of those workshops. So when they get there and they realize it's on content, they love it. We try out the labs if it's a longer workshop. This is way too long. I'll summarize. I'm new to teaching evolution and I'm really nervous, and now I feel really good about going in and teaching it to my students. Robin told me I have too much text on this slide, so she's right. Here's another one. I'm very worried about parents. Now I feel like I can defend what I'm doing in my classroom. I love that one. So I get, one of the things the presenters have to do is send me their evaluations. So I get these all the time. Good teachers means good, happy kids in the classroom, hands-on stuff. So I get pictures of the teachers doing the stuff in their classrooms. Isn't that fun? That's actually my class, because my class, they put it in the beaks. This is doing a lab that resembles the work of Peter and Rosemary Grant in the Galapagos, and so I actually let them put the beaks in their mouth, but I don't recommend that for other teachers. They're really good kids. Yeah, this came up, so Lydia came up with that in another county, letting them write on the black tabletops that we tend to have in science classrooms. I put this picture here for a reason, because it just shows you so many of us do things wrong for so long. I taught 6th grade for 25 years. I love owl pellets. Owl pellets are these little things that the owls regurgitate, and it's a little fur and bones, because the owl can't eat that part. And if you start picking it apart, you find humeri, and ribs, and femurs, and pelvis, and scapulae, and all these things in there. I love this lab. And you see these little 6th graders go, oh my God, this is a femur. It's a femur, Miss V, it's a femur. And one day it came to me after working with Richard Dawkins, and I said it for the first time. I said, guys, I didn't teach you the rat skeleton. I didn't teach you the skeleton of a shrew. How do you know the names of these bones? Oh, we learned the human skeleton. Yeah. Oh, they must be similar. Why are they similar? I did this for 22 years and I never said that. I never said that. We have to teach teachers to weave natural selection, evolution into their lessons like this. We don't do it. I'm guilty of that. So we spread the word. We have a lot of organizations. I reach out to everybody. Everybody out there knows me now. We are on social media. I'm not very good at it, so I got volunteers to do it for me. So Kenny Coogan does my Ties Facebook page. John Mead does my Twitter page. And I just started something new. This is brand new. I launched a webinar series. So if you go to our webpage, you can register for webinars. Our first was Dr. Michael Ryan. He just wrote a book on sexual selection on February 1st. He was great. On March 15th, coming up, we have Kathleen McAuliffe. This is Your Brain on Parasites, how parasites have evolved to affect the behavior of their hosts, and how we have evolved to avoid parasites. This is open to everybody, not just science teachers. And John Mead is presenting on Homo nallidae on March 8th. I believe that's March 16th, I'm sorry. She just changed the date on me. And then once a month, I also do a regular Ties workshop. What I would do in front of teachers, I do it once a month online for those teachers that are not near our physical locations. And I'm reaching out to homeschooling organizations. Yes, and Minnesota wants a private webinar just for their secular homeschoolers. And when it comes to the homeschooling world, you have to have the word secular in front of homeschooling. Because otherwise it means religious homeschooling, pretty much. So, that's it. That's the whole... Wow.
we'll do questions. Many of you remember Merv Griffin, right? Merv Griffin style. That way we can hear, everybody can hear. That's why we have a microphone in Bertha's hand, and we want everybody to hear your questions. So, looks like all the questions were answered, so. Oh, no, okay.
Did he help? Did he help the chickpeas?
He moved to another university. I can ask him.
Mike.
I don't know. It's a good question.
Mike.
Oh, sorry. I found out he left to Florida International University, so I have to check on back with him.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to compliment you on your great work, and but there's a clarification I think is important. A lot of times people say what we really need to teach is critical thinking, and I looked. I used to write a monthly article, so I looked up all the definitions of critical thinking. No educator understands really what it is. They all have a different idea. And I think the thing that's important is to teach scientific thinking, which I equate with critical thinking, really. It's the same thing as far as I can see. And it's good not to make a dichotomy out of that and just say what you need to do is teach early critical or teach scientific thinking from a very early age, and I think that's something we're not doing. If often not doing. If the students are learning this, and by the time they get to evolution in middle school, they are already grounded in a proper way of thinking, and they're going to be able to accept this a little better, I think. But a lot of times, by the time they get to middle school, they've been indoctrinated with a lot of religious ideas.
The mind virus. It's you know, science teaching is really hands-on now. It is like engaging hands-on starting in elementary school. So I think that's what those numbers are looking better.
Do you have a list of webinars that are available for everybody?
Yeah, it's on the webpage, but I have my business card with me. Which, this is weird for me to say I have a business card because I've been a teacher 27 years and never had a business card. But yes, and it's on the webpage, and you scroll down to schedule of events. And I know Kathleen is there, and we're adding John this week.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm wondering, setting aside religious pressures, what are the main obstacles or challenges for students really understanding or grasping evolution, you think?
It's, okay. It's the easiest part of the term. It's biochemistry is much harder for them. Genetics, Mendel, you know the difference between incomplete dominance versus complete. That's this. They all say to me, but this makes so much sense. So it's not difficult for them to understand it at all because it does make sense. I started the year. I brought in that flea medication that we used to put on the back of dogs' necks that I spent $70 for, and it didn't work on my dog. And I took her to the vet, and she says, "Oh yeah, that doesn't work anymore." I put the box there and I said, so why doesn't this work anymore? And they had just done genetics, so they understood. Well, some of the fleas must have had a mutation and it was beneficial, and they're now resistant to the poison. Oh, this is easy. I go, great, we're done. Let's move on to taxonomy. We're no more evolution. They're like, that's it? I go, that's kind of it. So anyway, I was joking, but it's the easiest part of the year for them.
So the main obstacle is...
Yeah, absolutely. They're like, this is easy, Ms. V. This I love. This is easy. Don't ever do biochemistry with us again.
So I kind of want to expand upon what the other gentleman talked about critical thinking in elementary school. So I run a planetarium, and we bring in a lot of elementary school kids. And boy, the elementary school teachers have very little knowledge in science, and usually they only get one class.
And they're scared of it.
And they're scared of it. So one of the things that we've been trying to do in Seminole County is to put together something similar to this for the elementary school teachers, not only to teach, I was going to say, what can I do? Because another thing is that we also need to look into this kind of methodology to teach teachers about climate science too, which is a big issue. So you're the founder, the forefront of this. We need to work on it. So I'd love to talk to you more about this.
I'd be happy to help you. All I have to do is look at the Massachusetts and New Hampshire elementary standards and modify my stuff to a lower, lower grade level, And I don't think it would be hard at all. We thought of adding climate science, Robin and I, but it's mission creep right now. We got
and cosmology too. Not cosmetology, but cosmology.
Yeah.
So I remember it was about 8-10 years ago, the National Center for Science Education added climate change.
Yes, they did.
But they were well established, and you're just getting your head of steam going. So I think that's smart to wait on
And
that.
I have a great relationship with them.
Good.
One of my biggest fears that I've been retired for about 5 years,
I envy you.
don't envy so much, but is that going with the home schools and going with the privatization, what standards do these particular entities have to follow? Are there any standards, or is this like what mommy wants to teach? How is it that this is, how are people getting away with basically non-schooling our students?
I don't have the background knowledge on that.
Does anybody here?
Religious freedom.
Religious exemption,
So it's the segue to, in universities, for someone to get a teacher's degree, what is being done there to promote evolution for teachers to understand?
Yeah, that's something else Robin and I discussed, and last October we had our first workshop for future science teachers at Valdosta State University in conjunction with Dr. Leslie Jones. I flew to Valdosta, and we did a day-long workshop for future science teachers. They're still college kids, and that's an avenue I need to travel, for sure.
You said it's illegal to teach intelligent design?
Yes, if a parent complains to the principal, it's not supposed to be happening.
But does this apply just to public school or more?
Oh, public school.
Hi, I had a question about what is legal and not legal as far as what your science teacher can tell your children as far as evolution. Like, I know one of my children's science teachers has told him that evolution is just a theory and can be disproven. And so,
that teacher, yeah. I mean,
what is your response to that? The way I look at it, evolution has so much facts to back it up that there really is no way to disprove it at this point.
absolutely. It's the theory in science with the most evidence, because every living thing around has evidence for it. I know what parents don't want their kids called out, so what you don't want, I know you probably don't want to call that principal and say, my child is in this person's class and this is what she said or he said. If you feel more comfortable, do it anonymously. If you feel more comfortable, reach out to the National Center for Science Ed, or you guys.
Yeah, so I get emails every week and Facebook messages every week from people that have concerns, and I forward those on and pass on the person to the Freedom from Religion Foundation or advise them on it specifically if it's a non-issue. But the FFRF, American Atheists, American Humanists, depending on the issue, the circumstances, they'll send a letter and say, someone told us in your school that this teacher, or just in this school, in this science program, that this happened and you need to fix it. With a lot more words than that. But that's a one method that works many times.
Yeah.
But we're at a stalemate right now with Orange and Seminole County, and we're getting ready to litigate. But we have plenty of audiences across the state in all 67 counties, and attorneys are writing letters all the time to let them know. So you don't have to out yourself. You can just come to us and we'll pass you on to an organization that has attorneys that'll do it.
David, what's the litigation you're getting ready to do? Because my son goes into middle school next year, and so...
Yeah, so I'll just say real briefly to not take away from Bertha, but we've got probably more than 24 issues in Orange County and Seminole County, and we're almost at a stalemate in conversations with their attorneys about how to resolve these. Everything from the Pledge of Allegiance to evolution to all kinds of issues, churches, banners and all kinds of stuff. So we're definitely looking for plaintiffs, and I will pass folks on to the Freedom from Religion Foundation because we're going to litigate. We need to set an example if they're going to stop doing the violations and listen to us. Did that answer your question, Kathy?
I think you gotta talk to Merv.
Who I need to go to, I'm still not quite sure.
So yeah, if you have an issue in a school, you can definitely start with me, and I'll be glad to tell you what I know, and I'll pass you on to the attorneys at the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Either way, you can start with us for sure.
David?
Oh yeah, okay, we'll be right back.
Okay, so I
learned and finally accepted evolution at 49 years old. Yeah, right. But I remember going through it in middle school and high school and being iffy about it the whole time. But so now I'm in discussions with other adults, and in particular with other pastors, and about some of this stuff. And this is probably outside your scope, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you have any recommendations for that? What I typically do is refer them to that book.
Are they still?
Why Evolution is True.
Oh, Jerry Coyne.
But do you any other suggestions?
For my religious kids, Francis Collins, The Language of Science and Faith. He's the head of the was the head of the Human Genome Project, an evangelical man.
Right.
I mean, I'm not giving him a Richard Dawkins book, that's for sure. So, Francis Collins, The Language of Science and Faith, is the most gentle nudge in the right direction I've ever read. The other really good one is Kenneth Miller, Finding Darwin's God.
Yeah.
So he's Catholic, Francis Collins is evangelical, so I kind of see, in Miami it's more Catholic than evangelical. But the Francis Collins, I even made a photocopy of a certain chapter in that book, and I just hand it to kids who are giving me a hard time. It's really, really, really good book. And he has a site called BioLogos with Carl Giberson, which is aimed directly at evangelical Christians.
How do you have enough time to do all this? You're a full-time teacher.
I have a son too, and a husband. I'm busy. I'm busy.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Do you do it mainly in the summer?
No, I do it mainly on the weekends. But actually what I do is, like, if I'm running or walking to the bathroom, I'm thinking of what I need to do, so that when I sit down and do it, I can do it really fast. We have a book idea now. And
You be careful how you say that.
no, like when I sit down back at my computer.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's like middle school. Can't say anything. Jeez. We have a book idea, which is I'm asking the other presenters, why do you teach evolution education? Why do you love it so much? What are your best ideas? How do you confront the challenges? And I said, would you each be willing to write a chapter? I've got 12 people who wrote back within 3 days. So that might be something that we're looking at and maybe handing out at the conferences, like a PDF form or something.
So I had a question. When you mentioned some books just now, it told someone that you probably have a lot of other books that you recommend. Do you have a list of books for reading that you recommend?
Well, my favorite evolution book is The Ancestor's Tale, T-A-L-E, by Richard Dawkins. To me, it's his tour de force. It's so beautiful, and it's thick. It's really thick. But it's going back in time and finding your ancestors, finding your fellow animals, plants, etc. As you go back in time towards the origin of life. Every chapter, it's like the Canterbury Tales. So every chapter you have a different animal or plant or fungus or whatever telling his story. That's a beautiful book. Now, in terms of just art, to be able to argue, there's a creationist handbook, and every possible argument you'll ever run into is there, and there's an index and the eye. Okay, so you go and you see what they say about the eye or intelligent design. You go and you see what every argument you could ever imagine is in that book. The Counter-Creationist Handbook, it's called.
What I was sort of getting,
The Counter-Creationist Handbook. Every argument they can ever throw at you is in there.
What I was getting at is there a printed bibliography or list that we can look at when we go to the website? We've discussed a lot of books, and it's hard for me to remember all these. And is there a possibility that someone could put up a list of books on your website?
Recommended book, Your Inner Fish. That's fabulous, and Valerie has it in the back right now. Sure, I could do that on my free time.
Just put up 10 or whatever, just print them up. You don't have to do a real comprehensive.
In the actual PowerPoint that I do with teachers, the last slide is a list of books.
Is there a way that could be
Yeah, that's
put?
actually, that PowerPoint is on the website.
Okay, thank you.
I think one of the fundamental problems is that the evangelicals have since the early part of the century, made a big point of proclaiming that the Bible is infallible and it's the direct word of God. And it seems to me this is so easy to refute. The evidence is so overwhelming, and it looks like maybe we could recruit some journalists here and there to point this out to people. They can believe whatever they want about religion, but this is simply untrue, that the Bible is infallible. Now, once the fundamentalists believe the Bible is infallible, they don't listen to anything you say. They tune everything out, because how could it be true if the Word of God says so-and-so? And I think that's one of the problems we're not addressing, that we just ignore the fact that that's the basis of the whole problem.
Yeah, and I know there's some people who are just never gonna. I talked to the presenter in Indianapolis. She presented Friday, and she told me afterwards she had to speak with a creationist for an hour. For an hour, super polite, wonderful teacher. And as she's talking to me, I go, wait a second, I know that guy. How far are you from Columbus, Ohio? Same guy. Except in my presentation, I have 50 teachers. He heckled me. He heckled, it was a little bit disconcerting to get some guy heckling you. He waited and waited for her outside. So at least she got a kinder, gentler version. And you know who defended me was a pastor. There was a pastor in the room, and he goes, excuse me, sir, if you want to talk about these things, I'll talk to you about them outside, but don't talk to her like this. And he took the guy out, and he said to me later, you can't be mean, you're representing an organization, plus I can't be mean anyway. So I decided to be the bad guy for you. So there's a guy, Ohio, Indiana area, that purposely goes, National Center for Science told me that. There are people in those state conferences, science teachers, that purposely go to the evolution ones and give you a hard time.
Wow. The phrase that I guess the Jesus gang used for the Bible is inerrant.
Right. Infallible, coming from the Catholic side of things. I didn't even know there was a problem growing up.
Well, it was easy to keep Catholics ignorant of the Bible until they started reading the Bible.
Our attitude is like, leave that book to the professionals, you know, the Catholic attitude.
Oh yeah, hi. In a perfect world, everyone would be like on the same footing, on equal footing with family background and economics and their willingness to want to open their minds to concepts. Because you live and work in a highly diverse area with family background and neighborhoods and economics, do you think that affects the parents' ability to support their children with this?
Yeah, everybody in my school's parents has a college education. I work at a real high educated demographic, so that's why I have such few problems. Yeah.
Do you think that what you do could apply to the greater Miami area, which is highly diverse with economics, as we know?
Yeah, I don't think Miami's that bad. Like, when I was in Valdosta, I just, my heart started beating, because she asked them to discuss their beliefs. I could not believe what I was hearing. I've never been exposed to that. It's this job that's exposed me to that. I had no idea that teachers, all the kids come one day and put Bibles on the desk and refuse to listen and things like that. I don't have anything like that going on. You know, even the kids, the worst I had was that kid who turned to face the wall. But he was kind of always polite. Although Richard Dawkins goes, oh, you call that polite? He turned and he faced the wall? You know, kick him out of your room. I go, I'm not using you in my videos.
All right, any final questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not a question, but whoever was asking about the homeschool standards, see me after this, because my ex-wife and I went down that rabbit hole, and it's scary.
I don't know what we're going to do about that.
Well, thank you, Bertha. Appreciate you being here. Jocelyn's going to take it away.